And welcome to Television is Furniture. We have another interview today, speaking to the inimitable and fantastically talented Fleur Kilpatrick, playwright, a performer, but it's been a long time, hasn't it?
I keep accidentally writing myself into things and writing roles that I have to perform. So I seldom introduce myself as a performer, but actually I've been performing a bit lately.
Yeah,
but
right.
Yeah, playwright, director, educator, chatty person.
The writing yourself into your shows ends up with you doing stories I want to tell you in person, right? So,
yes.
If it's good enough for Lally, it's good enough for you. And most excitingly, the new creative producer at RIverland Youth Theatre.
Yeah.
That's right, creative producer, yes. Now, you're originally from Adelaide, yeah?
I am from Adelaide. I moved to Victoria when I was 18 to go and study over there. So it's been a long time. And then I very suddenly moved back to Victoria last year in March when COVID hit, and sort of with one suitcase and no winter clothes, thinking I was going for 6 weeks, and then went about 6 months later, I went, oh, I think I moved to South Australia. Okay.
Did you have any contact, or were you involved with the OIT when you were there?
No, I hadn't been involved. I've done one thing a few years back where I mentored some baby playwrights, 3 13-year-old playwrights, which was wonderful. So that was about 6 years ago. So that's it. The job had actually come up already earlier in the year, and I looked at it and went, no, I'll be too torn between multiple locations. And then the person they got fell through. Thank goodness, because that gave me the time to realize that it was actually my dream job and to jump on in there. And it felt so right. I feel like I was kind of the board's dream person and the job was my dream job. And so it all happened very quickly as soon as I applied. They got me up here as fast as they could, which was great.
So you've been in the job for about 3.5 weeks, you were saying. So tell us about it from this incredibly new point of view that you're in.
Yeah, well, it's been a massive few weeks of learning and a lot of talking. Being new in a community, and this job I think of as very much a community-orientated job. So it's been, I feel a bit talked out, but that's the beautiful thing about it, is trying to broadcast to everyone. Our door is open, the kettle's on, come on in, have a chat. And people have been so generous with me in that way as well. So sharing, deep knowledge of this area and of what it's been through in, the last couple of decades. I'm just meeting amazing people and amazing artists and parents and advocates. So I feel very fortunate in who is here and how ready this community is to just welcome me. There's an energy here of like, great, you're here, let's go, which I'm up for. I was saying to you before we started recording as well, I'm loving the total lack of bureaucracy. Having come from working at a university for the last 5 years, this pace at which I'm able to work feels delicious, because I can just go, let's do this, and then we're doing it. There's just 2 of us really in the company, me and Molly, and so we just, if we have an idea, we can make it happen. So a new thing for the company is, and the thing that I'm thinking about a lot, is schools and teachers. Being a tiny company, we have a reach of, officially about 100 Ks, but in actual fact, I've had a teacher from Lameroo who's like 4 hours away reach out. I'm like, great, I'm going to go to Lameroo. So we've got a really big reach and a big mission and a tiny company. So I think that the best way I can support the most amount of young people is to support their teachers as well. So pushing really hard at bringing professional development to the area. A lot of the time, if you're a regional teacher, you come to the area to teach English and are told, here's your drama class. And the best way to help teachers have sustainable careers is to give them the skills where they're not overwhelmed by teaching those things that are thrown at them in the course of teaching. So very excited to be working with and supporting the teachers as well as their students.
Yeah. So that makes it sound a little like it's more focused on education than production. But my understanding is it's kind of balanced in a similar way to St. Martin's is here. Am I right? That it's got a kind of production output?
It does have a production output, but frankly, we haven't had many students coming through the door, and that's partly because of COVID. Mm-hmm. People aren't used to walking through the door at the moment and going, this is a place to be making art. And this company has a long, proud tradition of surviving cuts, surviving every possible obstacle that is thrown at it. So I know we'll get through it. But the last few years have been tough on the company. The whole youth arts sector lost a tremendous amount of money. This used to be a company with a staff of 4 or 5, and now it's down to 1.5, which for me is just fine, because I'm like, great, you mean I've got a wage and I've got Molly and I've got a building? I can get to work. But that means, the short of that means that it'll be a little while before we're up doing sort of full productions, because I've got to get the kids back coming through the door, get the parents used to bringing the kids. It's a really sports-focused area, which is great, but it means, as I've had some people say, parents are up for driving their kids halfway across the Riverland for netball, but maybe not for theatre at the moment. So about getting people used to the idea that this is also something that's really worthy.
Yeah, that's really interesting. Again, it's so early in your tenure there, but I'm driven to ask, how are you going to do that?
Well, we've got one of our very few assets is the RIverland Youth Theatre minibus. So we're doing a lot of, driving around the place, bringing kids. It's a 35k trip to Loxton. So I've absolutely done the drive 70 k's to get a kid and bring them back, and then drive 70 k's to get the kid back there to their home. All up. So I've done a lot of driving to get one kid through the door already. Nice. We're also we're redoing our website, but also actually just looking to create a website where people can say, buy us a tank of petrol to do those trips to get those kids through the door. So school holidays is going to be really big for us, because that's a really clear need in our community, is just a place to send your kids on a school holiday. And so that's kind of our big chance to introduce ourselves, or to reintroduce ourselves to the community and say, this is some of the big array of stuff that we can do with and for your children. How about you give us a shot? So we're working really hard at the moment on preparing a really diverse, exciting school holiday program, in hopes that next term's classes fill up a lot easier than this term's classes.
Yeah. I wonder, so hearing that, I'm in the process of writing a thing about the value of online and digital performance, which is, I basically spent the last year or so just reviewing things online, because everyone's in lockdown, and the only shows that sort of survive are the ones that have got that kind of online component. But it makes me think that both the work that I was doing teaching last year, and a lot of the work that you would have seen and probably been involved with at Monash, especially coming out of student theatre, there's so much of it that is now digital, right? Like Asynchrony up in Edinburgh, and the other thing of theirs that I reviewed last year that I can't remember the name of. I wonder if that's a useful way of being able to conduct that kind of work as well, like, so that you don't have to spend day in, day out driving to pick up particular kids, but get them to log in and make work online. Not that I'm pitching ideas at you, but I'm curious as to what your thoughts are.
I'm a step ahead of you, mate. Freya, who made Asynchrony for Must, I have been in communication with about making a Minecraft show for us. So we've got Freya. Well, I hope we've got Freya, because I've still got to put in the quick response grant to Country Arts SA. But theoretically, what we've got is we'll do a little test run of a Minecraft show in the school holidays. So we'll do sort of a 3-day workshop. And I've got a wonderful teacher from Renmark High School who's up for being there in the library to support any kids who don't have computers at home, but then also really prioritising those kids for whom getting to us will be really tricky. And Freya will make a little piece of Minecraft theatre with them. And then hopefully we can do a full production of it next year. But absolutely, you're right. The internet is such a good avenue when you've got this, when your community is over 100 kilometres wide. We've got to be thinking of new ways to do it. Another thing that I've been thinking a lot about is War of the Worlds, just literally because it came from, Theatre of the Air. I'm like, we kind of need to be a Theatre of the Air. It was the name of that theatre company that made me start thinking about it. So, and I love in War of the Worlds, it starts off the radio play with like, we've got a performance from this orchestra. We interrupt this broadcast too. So I've got this image that I could have a core group of young people on stage in Renmark that are there to do a performance of something that keeps getting interrupted by kids from different towns zooming in to show their aliens. And I could work with different communities around the Riverland to create alien sightings. So I'm very excited about that as a possibility as well. So it's both live and digital. Yeah.
That sounds amazing. That sounds
Thanks.
awesome. I mean, I've been pitching the idea of doing a War of the Worlds game for about 10 years now to people because it's out of copyright now, right? Like the original text is out of copyright. So
Love that.
Yeah. I grew up listening to the radio show. We had it on tape. I don't know how Dad had managed to get a copy of it on tape, but he had it. And yeah, the Raymond Roccacello Orchestra playing. Oh, now what was the song they played? They open it with it's Stardust. They open it with Stardust, and they're getting interrupted. It's so good. It's so good. Yeah, I love the idea. Also, it's a terrific idea to be able to get kids to come in, to zoom in and be able to show us the alien attacks in their neighborhood, etc. Because it does distribute that story so well. It gets them to create tiny little moments of performance and design. But it also captures that thing of when that kind of myth of when the radio broadcast happened, everybody going out and hunting for the aliens. Good. If that happens, man, you have to let me know. I'm going to review the hell out of that.
Thank you so much. Absolutely. But yeah, there's little things like there's a little school that I've been to once already, and I'm going to do a series of 5 workshops. It's Kingston on Murray Primary. That's a 19 kids school. It's like that teacher is so busy teaching kids across this age group, and they're going to do drama this term, and he's like, oh God, don't know how to do that. Get Fleur in. And so, that's this lovely opportunity I have to give, 19 kids in a tiny little community a great taste of theatre and of how theatre can be made and of what theatre can be other than a building, that we can make theatre on the banks of the Murray, that we can make theatre, inside their classroom, under their desks. All of this stuff is so exciting. But I think as well, partly though, it's about reintroducing what theatre is to our community, honestly, too. Because if you've got quite you do drama classes, that's we can be more than that. We're talking about doing these family fun days in the school holidays and building pillow forts and storytelling and setting up little campfires inside pillow forts for people to tell stories around and things like that. So I'm just sort of constantly trying to learn from every kid that walks through the door. I'm like, okay, I'm going to grill you now. What would you like to see out of, so every kid's an opportunity to figure out what I could be doing and what the gaps are in this community in terms of creative options. I feel so lucky to be a grown-up who gets to play for a living, who gets to be playful, who gets to be creative. And there are even kids out there in our community who don't get those opportunities, who are having to be very grown up, very young, who don't feel safe being themselves, who are excluded in various ways. So to have the opportunity to be a space of play and a safe space for young people is absolutely what moved me to the Riverland. So I could be that safe space for a kid.
Yeah. Well, I can't think of anyone who'd be better at it than you either. Um,
Thank
yeah. Um, well, I mean, we're now well past the 10-minute mark already, so I should probably wrap this up. There's so much more that I could go into with you, and once we stop recording, I probably will. But thank you so much for your time. It's so incredibly generous of you, and I really can't wait to see what comes out of your tenure there, especially if you're going to do a War of the Worlds broadcast. Oh, yeah, wolf chills.
Thank you so much. And I've got to say as well, thank you, Rob. Thank you to you for, I think, early on in my experience as a theatre maker, I think you put those ideas of play and making things as public and as accessible and and really lowering the barriers of entry to art. And I really appreciate that. And those are thoughts that I use every day in this job. So, you know, I don't know if I would have thought of Pillow Forts as part of the definition of what a theatre company is if it hadn't been for what you have been doing for years.
Oh, thanks, man. That's really nice to hear. I just want to keep talking about that now, but not how great I am, but the Pillow Fort thing. I'm supposed to be wrapping this up, but I really want to mention that there's a lot of this work, I've probably mentioned it to you in the past as well, has been done by like the professional community theatre companies back in the 80s. Particularly the Mill in Geelong is really worth looking into if you're looking for participatory theatre works that aren't that have a low barrier to entry. Really worth looking into.
I've got to just say as well that Molly, my admin assistant, is taking notes as you write it and is like, I'm on it, and is writing it down. Like, my gosh, what you can't do with Molly in a space.
Well, that's all you need, Molly in a space. If only we all had Molly in a space. All right, I got to wrap that up before I wax lyrical any further. Thank you again so much for your time, and hopefully we get to talk to you again soon.
Thank you. I hope so. Cheers. Bye.